Should we just casually talk, or do you want me to do an intro?
Yeah. Let me get my drink.
Get your drink? Yeah. Um,
My tea.
your tea? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, we just killed the last 2 cans of Coke that we had saved because we just moved a couch downstairs.
Yeah.
Like, and the entire apartment is just complete chaos right now, trying to box up everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm thirsty as hell. I'm gonna have to go get something to drink. But
Yeah. I can see like the little by little the Star Trek Deep Space Nine posters have been disappearing from the background there.
yeah, it's all blurry now. I'm really excited though because the new place, I'm gonna get like a ring, like a ring light thing for my
Okay.
face. The
Okay.
background's gonna be like curated to fit right, you know. It's gonna be a much more comfortable, better space, I think, overall.
Mm.
So I'm stoked on it. But yeah, no. Well, I mean, I'm not the only one who was thirsty this weekend. There were about 30 drivers who were thirsty for the Indy 500, and there were what 20 drivers thirsty for the Monaco GP win. So,
Yeah. Well,
and
let's be real. Let's be
they're all
real.
thirsty after the race too. So,
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. I mean, after lap one, there were really only 17. Um, and
yeah,
I think Magnussen was the thirstiest, man.
yeah, yeah. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. This is F1 or F Off, your audio pit stop for F1 news, race
Vroom.
reviews. My name is Gabe. I am your less than eloquent host.
Less than eloquent, Jesus Christ.
What is our podcast without a little bit of self-deprecation? Okay.
I'm just a piece of shit. That's what I am.
I'm a straight trash. Welcome to the podcast.
Rubbish. Hey everyone, I'm Idris.
Man, so I'm just gonna preface this. So obviously today we are talking about not only the Monaco GP, but we are actually going to talk about the Indy 500, which just wrapped up.
Yeah. 'Cause we both watched it. We had
We
some
both
time.
watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels nice to be able to watch something live.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I you know, just to kind of start off here, I did just post on our social media the shout out to the WTF the WTF1 Instagram page for perfectly summoning up the Monaco GP with a little timeline graphic.
Yeah.
It was like a little blip at the beginning that said chaos, and then it was nothing.
Yep.
Bottas passes someone, and then Charles Leclerc wins.
Yep.
Which, yeah, that's literally what happened.
Yeah.
I remember watching this, and I remember the commentators got really excited that Bottas passed someone.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you watching the F1 Global feed or sorry, you had the F1 Global audio, or were you watching the Sky audio?
Sky Sports, yeah.
Sky Sports,
I
okay.
still haven't kicked it. I'm on the verge, though. Martin Brundle just has to have one more Brundle blunder,
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna. I might start next year. I might just do the the regular F1 TV app feed,
Yeah.
because at least from what you tell me, they're pretty much on top of their stuff, right?
Dude, they've
Like,
got Julian Palmer, David Coulthard, and Alex Jacques. Sorry. Those guys are awesome. And then every now and then they get some IndyCar drivers in there. They had James Hinchcliffe on back in Miami. Like their commentary is awesome, and they're funny.
Yeah.
They're funny. It just takes some getting used to, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie. Like David Crofty has like a really good color commentator voice. You know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah.
got that excitement, and the way he can build up like the most boring and rote of things, right? Like,
Max Verstappen pits.
hey Vince, no, hey Vince, and you're just like, what's going on? What's
It's
going
a-
on? What's going on?
It's a sub 3-second pit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
he's really good
yeah.
at that.
You bring up a good point. I mean, when I first started watching, I'm going to date myself here. When I first started watching Formula One, it was on the Speed Channel.
Old.
And yeah, for you youngins out there was a channel that was
Oh
called
my
the
God.
Speed Channel, and guess
I
what
wanted
the
it.
channel was about? It was about speed.
The drugs.
Yes. They had I forget the commentators, but David Hobbs was one of them, and they had I forget the rest, but like I had those set of commentators, right? And
Yeah.
then it moved, then the Speed Channel went away and it moved to NBC Sports, which is what you watch IndyCar on. And so
Hmm.
they had Lee Diffie, and I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, like I know Lee Diffie, like Lee Diffie, like this is okay. It's a little bit of an adjustment, gotten used to it, but whatever. And then like switching over to Sky Sports was weird because I'm like, man, I'm used to hearing like Lee Diffie and blah blah blah, and like, but they just weren't doing it, and so
Hmm.
I had to get used to that feed. But honestly, I'm gonna say it out of all of those, like this is definitely the I will say that it feels the weakest of the ones that I've enjoyed.
Mm.
So
Is it because
so
of
maybe
Brundle?
maybe a refresh is good. I
Yeah.
mean, like David Coulthard, he's got some weird iffiness in his past, but he's more relevant driver than Martin Brundle is,
Mm.
as is Jolyon Palmer. So,
Yeah.
maybe that's the way to go. So maybe I'll just try that from now on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's cool too is that like those three have like direct access to the actual like graphics generators, right? And the people who
Hmm.
actually pull up like the visual video stream. So like a
Yeah.
couple times in the race or the quality during this weekend, Alex Jacques was like, "Oh yeah, and we're gonna have this picture come up of David Coulthard again," and he didn't, the request didn't go through the first time. He was like, "Hey, visual team, hey, can we get David Coulthard's like picture up of him with the Monaco suit?" And they pulled it up right away. So they have
Yeah.
that direct line. So they'll, like little quirky things like that'll happen. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, overall, pretty good announcement, pretty good announcing team. Wanted to
Yeah.
shout them out for that.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to try it.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
okay,
what's
so
there to lose? You
yeah,
go back
right.
to Brundle.
Right, yeah. Well, so here's the thing. I do want to talk about the Monaco GP. But I honestly want to talk about it in relation to IndyCar and the 500.
Yeah,
Because there
yeah.
is being the first time I've ever watched a 500
Hmm.
like live
Yeah.
and not just like highlights or whatever. It was it has been a long time since I've genuinely felt nervous or excited for the end of a race.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, so let's talk about Monaco really quick, right? Let's talk about the Monaco GP. Um, so it's historic, right? It's the what was this, the 80 some one, the
The
80 something?
70th. This is the
Oh, was it the
70th time.
70th?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it was like the 80th. Um, but they were running and they were doing this race pre-war, right? So
Hmm.
this has been taking place for at least 100 years because it was in the 20s, right? Um,
Yeah, and when we say pre-war, we're talking World War II.
yeah. We're talking great like the Bugatti,
Yeah.
like Bugatti race cars, the Mercedes like Auto Union cars, like Grand Prix racing cars from the
Hmm.
20s, like they were doing this, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so there's a lot of history behind it. But I think like and obviously it's part of the Triple Crown, right? But in comparison to the Indy 500, it does feel like a side dish as compared to like
Mm.
a three-course meal in a way. And like the reason why I say that is because like the Monaco Grand Prix takes place on a weekend, right? Like just any other race. It's just that's what it is.
Hmm.
The Indy 500 takes over literally the entire month of May.
Right.
Like you have the like in the infield Grand Prix, right, with like that's not like the oval race, there's like a normal Grand Prix at the Indianapolis racing circuit, and then you have 8 practice sessions. You have like bump day, which is like the or like a last chance qualifying. You have the normal like just series of qualifying sessions. You have the pit crew contests. Like in all of these, they don't take place on a weekend. They take place on multiple weekends leading up to the
Right.
500, which is the actual race, right? And so there's just I mean, for one, there's so much content because they air the
Right.
practice sessions, and the practice sessions are like 8 hours long. Um, and like all the build up to it, it builds up to such a momentous peak.
Hmm.
That when you actually get into the race itself, everything is heightened. Like
Yeah.
everything is tense. And so like watching the Monaco Grand Prix, I was like, okay, like It was amazing. I thought I would be more excited for a race that Max was not going to win.
Hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I this is the race Charles needed. He needed a
Yeah.
nothing burger of a calm, just cruise it to the end race to
Hmm.
finally get that Monaco win
Yeah.
for him.
His
You know what I
home
mean?
Grand Prix win. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long time coming. I'm so proud of him, but it was not it definitely wasn't without its wackiness and chaos,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like explain what happened on that
Dude,
first lap there.
oh my God. Oh my
Chase.
God. So first off, I mean, but we have to go back to quality to talk about this, about how Checo just didn't even get out of Q1, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, it's
this
true.
is
Yeah,
just his I don't know what happened.
yeah.
Just wasn't able to get it out, right? So because of that, he's starting all the way in the back. And then the Haas has got deked from quali, right?
Hmm.
So what ends up happening is you have the two Haas's and Perez in the back, right? And they start the race off, and I think it's Nico and no, no. Yeah, Nico's in front of wait, was Nico in front of Perez? Yeah,
No,
Nico's in front. Oh no, no, Perez, then Magnussen, and I think Hulkenberg, right? And
right.
Hulkenberg is coming up. There, this is like the first straight shot of the lap, right, of the circuit, and so straightaway, I should say.
Yeah, it's
And then you
up the
have
hill.
yeah, and so you have
Yeah.
Magnussen just kind of going for it at a certain point, but at the same time, it looked like Perez maybe was closing the door a little too early too at the same
Hmm.
time. So I didn't even look up to see like who got if anyone got a penalty for that. I'm sure Magnussen probably got penalty points for that, and actually is probably going to get a race ban because of that. But
Quiet
anyways,
quitting.
and that's another thing.
Yeah,
But Magnussen effectively taps Perez. That sends Perez like flipping and sliding all over the place, right?
they like locked
Yeah.
wheels. Yeah.
Hmm. And then he collects Magnuson gets collected in the Paris, and then Hulkenberg comes up, and he just gets collected.
Yeah.
So three cars out and one go, and they instantly
Hmm.
red flagged the race. And it took them what I think it was like 35, 40 minutes before they got back to racing.
Hmm.
To like fix the barrier, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it was just madness, right? Like that's
Yeah.
right off jump. And in all of that, right? You
Uh-huh.
also have the two Alpines just colliding because
Yeah.
Ocon just like, this is my race, I will win.
I wait. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like
And just yeah, he gets yeeted into the
just
air by his teammate
yeah.
because he tries to pass him on a place where you don't try and pass your teammate. Like especially in the
Yeah.
opening lap. Like apparently, I don't know if you heard this because they talked about it, but apparently Ocon got a really stern talking to, not only from the race director or like the team director, but also
Yeah.
the French media.
Yeah.
They are apparently pissed at him,
Yeah.
and they said something ominous. I think I forget who it is that's the team principal had they had some ominous comment where they said some strong decisions will be made.
Yeah. I think Ocon for
Which
sure. Ocon's gone. Dude, they're
yeah,
not bringing him back next year.
yeah, I mean, I think that for the most part, in my memory, I'm pretty sure that Pierre has been the victim in most of these altercations between the two
Hmm.
of them, because remember they have that rivalry that happened because Pierre passed him on a race when they were karting as kids once, and that
Hmm.
just created an eternal fire of competition between them.
We
Like,
we've talked about this before where we thought it might have been like a jilted ex-lover or something, right? Like a girl
yeah,
who was with a lady, a girlfriend of Pierre when they were kids,
uh,
right? Then broke up with him and went over to Esteban, and Esteban's like, "Oh, well, your former flame, I can never be okay with," kind of thing. No, it's not that. It's literally like, I think Esteban was leading in the championship, and then Pierre just like started like mopping the floor with him,
yeah, it's like
stuff like that.
it's like almost like if Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly were the two the what is it Alfalfa and the rich kid from Little Rascals. Remember, like it's like the rich kid like takes Alfalfa's girlfriend and he's got like a rocket powered car,
Yep.
and then Alfalfa's trying to
Yep.
win her back the whole time. It's just like, oh no. That would be more of a compelling story if I'm being honest than
Yeah.
what it actually is. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, the two Alpines just that was just ridiculous. Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Um but I'm going to give a shout out to Oscar Piastri and Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz was lucky here. So that was the other thing. That was the third thing that happened at that first lap, and that was that Sainz ran into the side of Oscar Piastri's car. His tire got cut down,
Yeah.
and he literally went like straight on up at the casino section. And he's lucky that there was that conflict because he would not have been on the podium. He got a chance to get back to the pits.
Yeah.
They reset conditions
He's
because the red flag didn't go up
yeah.
before everybody got through the first sector. So so yeah, he's very fortunate for that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But honestly, like shout out to Piastri and even Lando Norris for just sticking with the Ferraris the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Leclerc had control from the get-go. Thankfully, there was no terrible pit stop. I think at one point they were trying to ask him something about like who was around him as far as like the race pace around him,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't want to divulge any information on the radio. And I
Mm-hmm.
think Charles just goes, "How rude!
Yeah. That's so rude.
So rude."
Oh, you're so naughty, Brian. That was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I guess if you were to give the Monaco Grand Prix a rating out of 10, where would you put it?
You know what? I know for like as procedural as it was, I actually enjoyed watching it. I think it was because things were going so well for Charles Leclerc because it never does, right? It like
No.
lately this guy has needed it. So I think that made it worth
Mm,
it. Um I think it's more just the spectacle of the entire weekend has elevated what the race actually was, right? Like the race
right.
itself was probably like a 6, right? But the weekend I think has elevated it up to like like an 8, honestly, because of like the humor surrounding it.
Right.
McLaren coming in with the sick livery on the car and the team unit,
Mm,
the team kits,
right.
and also some spicy comments from Lewis Hamilton, all of which we will talk about because I have a lot of thoughts and I really, really got to know what you think about this as well, Gabe.
Yeah, we'll fire him off. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah. Okay. So, do you want to talk about the race first, or you just want to get into it? Because I mean, the race was cool. Like Charles Leclerc won, but I
Yeah.
think what's more interesting are the things around that.
That around it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Like, I think honestly the more of what was happening around it um was um was more interesting. Including during qualifying somebody had a runaway boat that like spun around and crashed into two other boats and like drove over a dock or something. It was
Mm-hmm.
right next to Logan Sargent's parents' boat or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, so well, okay, somebody's getting into the spirit of what's happening here,
Mm-hmm.
doing his own qualifying out in the rich waters."
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I mean, yeah, let's talk about it. Well, you mentioned the Senna livery with
Yeah.
McLaren. Yeah, let's talk about it.
So let's talk about. All right. I think there's both good and bad to this. So we gotta let's talk.
Mm,
Let's start with the good side, right? The Harvey Dent side of the coin.
okay.
Um, team unit or team yeah the team kids uniform kids excellent, right?
Yeah.
That Brazil yellow and green, beautiful, love it.
Hmm.
um the reason McLaren goes with this is because their guy, Ayrton Senna, won the Monaco GP 6 times. Like no other
Hmm.
driver has won it. Like he has the most number of wins at that track. um
Right.
you
Yeah, it is
think
the 30th year of his passing.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and also the 30th year of the passing of Roland Ratzenberger, right? Which
Right. Which yeah.
unfortunately always gets overshadowed by this
Yeah.
because he passed away literally the day before, right?
Yeah.
During
Yeah.
qualifying. Um and with Senna, him winning, like people just love this guy, right? Like,
Hmm.
you have a lot of drivers on the grid who a lot of older drivers specifically, like your
Hmm.
Alonso's, your Hamiltons, right? Who grew up
Hmm.
watching Senna and just being like, oh yeah, like
Hmm.
that's why I want to be a driver. Like that guy
Yep.
seems really cool, right? And over the weekend, one of our favorites, Gabe and I are both a big supporter of this guy, came out of retirement with a tweet. And I don't know if you saw the tweet from Chain
Mm,
Bear, right?
mm,
He said, feel like this might be a minority opinion, but the near obsessive deification of Senna is almost uncomfortable. I know it's
mm,
an anniversary, so heightened, but I have uneasy feelings that I don't quite know how to express.
mm,
And this was a result of the media press run that McLaren was, pushing out there with, oh, look at Lando and Oscar with their like, Senna inspired helmets, and
Hmm.
they both had a comment about how like he's a super inspirational driver, and et cetera, about how he helped push them onto their path of becoming an F1 driver. And it's
Hmm.
kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, they're also not really within the era of which, that Senna was driving in, right? So
Yeah.
it's more of looking at him as like a legend of the sport, which is fine. Like people do that all the time, right? Like I can say, like,
Hmm.
as an engineer, I can say I look at what Kelly Johnson did with, Lockheed Martin, like Skunk Works, and go, oh, that's really cool. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
alive during his time, right? But still, the SR-71 is like a really cool piece of machinery, right?
Right.
Um, that's for my fellow nerds out there. But I mean, there is something. I guess there is kind of something to it. I guess I had never really thought about it or sat down and really think about it until I saw this, right? And I
Yeah.
guess I kind of missed. Maybe I'm with you. Maybe you're. I'm sorry. Maybe you're like me, where you might have missed this media push over the weekend, right?
Mm.
About just Senna, 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 right? Um, I don't know
No,
how
I
do you,
was everywhere.
yeah, I think, well, the reason I say this is because, like, I don't really sit on social media a whole lot, right? Like
Yeah.
most of my engagement is through stuff that we do for the pod, right?
Yeah.
Um, and some stuff throughout Reddit, right? Sometimes I go on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it. But for the most part, I don't know, I'm not really like diving into the world of social media. Um, and so I think I missed a lot of that, right? Um, and it may not have felt like such a deluge of information and deluge of media push onto me. How do you feel about this? Because I think he brings up kind of a good point, right? Like a lot of the discourse around this has been like, okay, Ayrton Senna, yeah, awesome driver, awesome, like, one of the greats of the sport, et cetera, et cetera. But also, what about him as just a human person, right? Like the things that he was involved with that a lot of people would take pause with today. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And we don't necessarily have to go into all of that right now because you listeners can like look up stuff and see what's out there. But um, he's human, just like all of us are human. So things happen in our lives. But
Hmm.
what do you think about that? Just like, I guess
Um,
there's a lot there to talk about.
there is. It's complicated for me.
Right.
Because on the one hand, honestly, I would not be into F1 if it was not for Ayrton Senna. I think that his story, um, the spotlight that they did with him on Top Gear, the documentary that came out about him not that long after, in like the 20 teens, um, that was really, I mean, it was inspirational. Like a lot of documentaries are inspirational.
Hmm.
You see a lot of the things that he did. And when you see drivers who are legendary, like you see Lewis Hamilton's helmets for years were a tribute to Ayrton Senna.
Hmm.
Michael Schumacher said that Ayrton Senna was it was the best driver that he's ever competed against. Like so did Rubens Barrichello. And you talk about older drivers, but like Pierre Gasly, he idolized Ayrton Senna too. Like
Mm.
that was his inspiration. And so did Sebastian Vettel. Obviously, I mean, he wouldn't have bought um, his racing cars if he did. I think that Ayrton Senna's helmet is iconic.
Oh yeah.
I think that McLaren, the McLarens that he drove were also iconic. I think that the story involved and the things that would happen to him, like the whole decision with Alan Prost winning the '88 championship,
Hmm.
in a very controversial way. Um, there's a reason why the story of Ayrton Senna is legendary. And it's not like he was just any random person. Like that guy, like you don't have multiple world championships. You don't have multiple Monaco wins without having some talent and being able to drive and being an incredible driver. I think that for me, I think the biggest problem that we're having here, and our friend Elizabeth Blackstock specifically points this out as a reason, and this is where I agree with her specifically, and that is that people use Ayrton Senna as a brand.
Yeah.
and they push the
100%.
brand because they know the brand will sell. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, the Formula One website, merchandise website, has a Ayrton Senna section.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the thing is, it's like Ayrton Senna has like his legacy is a foundation, a charitable foundation that
Right.
helps out the youth in Brazil.
Hmm.
That's fantastic.
Right.
You know, I mean, he was a devout Christian. I don't really agree with like a lot of that. I'm not religious. And so like, you know, that's not a part of, you know, the discussion for me. But like from what I understand, like, you know, he had moments where he was aggressive, but like he seemed to be somebody who did genuinely care about his sport. He did genuinely care about the people who he raced with as well. So it's I do think that it's an oversaturation, and I don't think that it's Ayrton Senna's fault. I mean,
Hmm.
that guy just drove. He wanted to race. He wanted to win. He tragically died, and I think that everything that's happened afterward is not his fault. It's not like he was trying to establish his own brand. At least I don't think it was.
Right.
Like early on, you know what I mean? Like he was just doing what every other race car driver does, you know? And so I think that yeah, I think like, you know, 30 years on, having a tribute to him and Roland Ratzenberger is good. Like you said, I think they kind of gloss over Ratzenberger.
Yeah.
But I think that I think that the cynical forces here are trying to capitalize on that legacy and that you know, that sort of part to obsessively try and grab attention, grab revenue, and that I don't like. I think that
Hmm.
the Senna legacy needs to be remembered, but I don't think it needs to be God, what would the term be? Uh Abused, I guess. You know what I mean? In this
Hmm.
way, it feels kind of gross. It really does at this point. It's sort of, you know what this reminds me of? What they're doing to Ayrton Senna is what they did to Star Wars, which is why I cannot with Star Wars anymore.
Mm.
It's like I just saw we were at I was at Famous Dave's barbecue, which by the way, pretty good. Um and I watched a preview that Disney was putting up some new Star Wars thing that's like a before the Empire, blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, there's just lightsabers everywhere, and it just looks like it's like they're trying to redo Rogue One again, which by the way I don't like. Come at me, bro. Um,
Dude.
and it's just too much. It's too much. It's just like, let it lie. Let it be what it's going to be. It has become such a cash cow at this point that it's just endlessly just harping on the same themes, the same stuff over and over and over again, and I'm tired of it.
Hmm.
I'm sick of it. I love Ayrton Senna. I mean, I bought his Lego car. He's very important to me as far as being like an influence for me wanting to watch the sport. But at the same time, I love the sport for all sorts of other reasons.
Hmm.
And I wish they would just leave it alone. I wish they would just have some merch, you know, talk about him on occasion. But like, yeah, the over obsession with him as the one driver, it feels weird. They don't do the
Yeah.
same thing with Michael Schumacher, which
There's a
arguably Michael Schumacher has more success than Ayrton Senna has, you
yeah.
know, or
There's
Lewis Hamilton.
yeah. No, there's definitely a lot of yeah, they don't do the right. They don't do this with everyone, right? There are a few drivers in particular they do it with, and it's
Mhm.
just like you said. I think it's a branding thing, and it sounds so
It is
awful
a
to
branding
say.
thing. Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely can feel weird for sure. I mean, you see this across a lot of different sports, right? So this is not to say that Ayrton Senna is special in that regard. Like I think it's just done to people who are really good at what they do, that have like untimely, like awful things happen to them, right?
Yeah.
And they're just turned into something, right?
They don't do this with Jim Clark. Jim Clark was a major sensation in the
Mm,
60s in Formula One. Like
mm,
huge. Like if he had kept going, he probably would have had multiple world championships.
yeah.
But he unfortunately died. But nobody really talks about Jim Clark unless you're Jackie Stewart.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just weird how history has sort of come around this way, you know.
Yeah.
But I
I
will
mean,
say this:
yeah.
the McLaren livery did look very good.
Oh, sick,
It
man.
looked a lot
Clean.
like the Benetton from like what, like
Yeah.
94
Yeah.
96,
Yeah.
which I was like, yeah, let's bring
Hmm.
some yellow, because you always talk about wanting to see a yellow car on
Yes.
track, and it looks
Yes.
good. Yeah,
Yeah. What I really want to see, honestly, I want to see Ferrari just go yellow. Just invert the yellow and red on the car. Oh, it would look so good just for one race. Just
yeah.
for one race. Oh. Like
I know.
it would look so good. It would look so good.
Yeah, it would. It would. I agree. I like they need more color variation going on.
Yeah.
No more I like it, but obviously like, the whole carbon revolution that happened this year was just like
Have you s-
um
so there's it's we should post this to our story, but there's a video of some guy on Instagram, and it's an Instagram reel. Sorry, it's a video of some guy at some car show, right? And he was showing off all the carbon fiber in the car, right? And someone retweeted this or reposted this right during all the delivery reveals, right? Because everyone had carbon fiber, and like he's going around the car, he's like, carbon fiber, carbon
carbon fiber.
fiber,
Carbon
carbon
fiber.
fiber.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. No, for real. Yeah, it's just
Carbon fiber?
it like man, like I just you know what guys, it's like just put some paint on the car, damn it. You know, but
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, so the Senna thing happened. It was Senna Fest.
Mhm.
But I don't want to detract from Charles Leclerc getting
Right.
his historic. It is a historic win because it is the first time that a
Yeah.
monogas driver won at Monaco, and we got to hear the Monaco
Principality.
national anthem,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which was very delightful. And then it was followed by the Italian national anthem, which was also delightful.
Man,
So
I love the Italian national anthem, man.
I know. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. It has that little bump, bump, bump,
Yeah.
bump in the middle. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I wish ours was that exciting. Ours is very somber.
It really
Yeah.
should be America the Beautiful, I think, personally. That's
Oh
just my
yeah.
take,
Oh
but,
yeah.
you know,
That is I would say it's a more beautiful sounding song.
yeah, it's in the name.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, well, what else what else can we talk about with Monaco that's worth mentioning?
Can we just talk about how Mercedes is just a shell of itself? Oh my God, that team is just
Yeah.
trash, dude. Like,
Yeah.
and I say that as a Mercedes supporter.
Their pace is a little bit better
Pace
this,
is
this
be-
race.
Pace is better, but like, what I mean by them being a shell of their former selves is they just don't have, I guess it's like, they're not on it. You know what I mean?
No.
Like 2018, 2019, 2020, these guys are on it, right? Pit stops,
Yeah.
on it. Strategy calls, on it.
Mhm.
Like undercut, overcut, whatever it is. You need me to do something, sir? Done. You know, all that kind of stuff, right? It was hammer time all the time.
Yeah.
Both
Right.
house was pulling stuff out. Like it was great.
Yeah.
But
Right.
then what happened in 2020, you get people starting to get hired away. 2021, people are starting to get hired away, right?
Mhm.
And then there's like the whole pressure of like, oh, we won the constructors, but can we actually win the drivers' championship? And oh, Lewis didn't get it, and we'll
Mhm.
just put like a black box on that of however you want to interpret that, right?
Yeah.
And then 2022, everyone's like, okay, well, will Mercedes bring it back and give us the the revenge tour this year and everything? No. And they completely fall flat on their faces, right?
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
it takes them a whole year to figure out that the freaking concept doesn't work, right?
Mhm.
And they just stick to it. And then it doesn't work again,
Mhm.
right? And then they decide, okay, we're going to change it up a little bit. And it's like too late at that point, right? It's like what's happening is that it feels like the people in charge. So this is Toto, this is his management team, the group leads, whatever. It feels like what's happening is that no one is making a strong decision and saying, this is 100% right. And I do not care what you think is the right answer. We are going to do this, right?
Mhm.
But because I think what's happening is that it's on the flip side of this solution might unlock new potential, right? And therefore we should go with it because we might get the opportunity. We might gain an opportunity or an advantage on our enemies, right? Or on our
Yeah.
opponents. And notice the difference in words that I used there, right? I said 100% certainty with the previous example, and the latter example I said might, maybe, potentially, opportunity. Like
Yeah.
you have to go for things that are solid, right?
Right.
Start, get that solid foundation built and then start building upon that, right? The mights and maybes and potential opportunities, that comes in your CFD analysis and your simulations, right? And it's just frustrating. It just seems like it's gone all the way down through just pit wall communications, right? So Lewis, he was pitted and he comes on the radio. He's like, why didn't you tell me that was like an outlap? Why didn't you tell me that outlap was critical? Granted, I think every outlap is probably really critical. You want to make
Yeah.
sure that you're on top of it, right? So that should kind
Right.
of be inherent, right?
Right.
But he might also be thinking about other things. I don't know. Maybe just give him some benefit of the doubt there. But typically, like a race engineer would come on the radio and say, "Hey, this is critical," right? Like that's happened
Right.
almost every other race that we've
Yeah.
seen Lewis in with Mercedes, right? So
Right.
that was really surprising to see, and then also to see how they like Mercedes as a team just completely failed Russell this race, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like they could have pitted him like way earlier, way sooner, and then they didn't pit him. And then what ended up happening is that they pit Hamilton, and then Verstappen gets to pit, and then Verstappen at the end was like right up on Russell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like that could have gone really poorly, right? So if you're Russell, you're probably like, oh, blimey, is this the team I'm about to inherit? You know,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're Verstappen, you're like, man, I hope they continue to make these kinds of mistakes. And
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton's just like, I'm done, right? Especially if you
Mm-hmm.
listen to the comments he was making this weekend with some interviews. I don't know if you heard those talking about
No.
behind the scenes stuff. Oh, and it gets even spicier. So, you know how I know the relationship between Hamilton and Mercedes is dead?
Hmm.
It's because Lewis effectively told us.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
there's an interview of him asking. He was being interviewed, and they were like, "Oh, how is your pace for qualifying or something like that?" And do you think you'll be able to out qualify Russell this year? And he was just kind of like, I don't expect to really out qualify Russell this year at all. And they're like, "Oh, any reasons why?" And he was like, "Well, you know, kind of I'll leave it there, something along those
Mm-hmm.
lines, right?" So, social media is doing this thing, the internet's doing this thing, so people are thinking that
Yeah.
he's not getting the upgrades,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is true for this weekend. I don't think he got the upgrade. I think it went to
Mm-hmm.
Russell, right?
Right.
And maybe that was like a preference, right? Maybe it was like a front wing, and he's like, I don't know if I want to put a piece like that onto the car for this track, that sort of thing, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, it is in essence, it is true. Like I'm sure at some level, Lewis is being iced out, right? Like from communications, talking about like the technical side of the car improvements going to bring later on in the year that they probably will implement into next year's car. All these kinds of things, right? So he's probably getting iced out, and that's what's happening, and we're seeing that happen in real time. And
Right.
yeah, I don't know. Mercedes is just not. This is not the Mercedes of 5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, Russell coined probably my new favorite word with in regards to a race pace that he was doing this during the race.
Hmm.
He made some comment about poodling around the track, and I was like, does he mean like puttering? But no, no, he said poodling with the two O's. He was like, we're just poodling around now, and I was like,
What
poodling?
does that mean?
Okay.
What
And
does
just
that
it's
mean?
George Russellisms apparently. But yeah, so
Hmm.
I guess Lewis Hamilton is just poodling around the rest of the season until he gets into the Ferrari. But I'm telling you what, Hamilton's probably in the back of his head feeling pretty stoked seeing the pace that Ferrari's putting
Hmm.
out, winning the Monaco Grand Prix, doing pretty well this year. I mean, Ferrari has 2 wins this year now, so
Hmm. Dude.
the not the all dominant season that we thought Red Bull was going to be.
Hmm.
So
Four race wins, four different race winners so far this year.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think like Hamilton or Mercedes were showing some a little bit more promise than they would normally, but yeah, I think I think they're just a broken team right now. They're
Yeah.
just they're it's like it's sort of like if you break up with somebody and you're in like an elevator at the same time and you're both just sitting just waiting for the elevator ride to be over, not talking at each other and not really
Man.
looking in each other's directions. You
Dude,
know,
it's like I'm sorry, dear. It's
it's
not
not
you.
you, it's me.
It's me.
Dun,
Ding.
dun, 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 dun,
Or
dun,
even
dun,
better
dun.
if it's like Stevie Wonder that comes on. Isn't she lovely? You're standing there like
Baby, come back. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. uh,
oh
um,
man.
it's really sad that the AI program that we use to pull some clips just doesn't
Mhm.
pull any of our golden stuff like our singing when we look at. We're just gonna have to manually find those. Um, yeah. So
Apparently.
apparently, here's this is what happens when you. Um, Well, let's shift gears here. Oh, um,
Oh, car joke, dude,
um, and
bruh.
because I want to talk about the Indy 500,
Yeah.
because it was kind of a if you took the essence of the first lap of the Monaco Grand Prix and
Oh man.
stretched it out across like 8 hours, that was
Hmm.
what we witnessed at the
It was
500.
so long.
Because seriously, like, I mean, first thing, there was a 4 hour delay because of thunderstorms,
Hmm.
right? So
Yep.
they dry the track off. They did that whole thing. Um, IndyCar has like all these like traditions leading up through. So like you have the driver introduction, which was adorable every time. Like Scott Dixon, Helio Castroneves, and a couple of the other drivers had like brought their kids up to like be on the podium with them, which I thought was adorable. Um, you had you had the jets fly over twice, once at the end of the national anthem and then another at the end of the my home in Indiana or whatever, like the song they sing
Hmm.
for that. You have Roger Penske shouting, gentlemen, start your engines, or ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. And then yeah, the first lap, big chaos. You have who was it? It was Lundqvist and Ericsson and Fittipaldi got into it, and there was what I calling the curse of the Vist, because literally every Gvist, there's Lundqvist, there's Rosenqvist, and
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
Rosenqvist, Lundqvist, and there's another Kvist in there. Um, I forget, but all three of the Kvists were retired or had accidents, right?
Yep. Yep.
Poor Catherine Legg had
Oh man.
mechanical failure,
Yeah.
which was such a bummer for her. I was really hoping that she was going to at least be able to finish it. Colton Herta, same sort of thing. He had an off, and that was a problem. So the huge attrition level at this
Yeah.
race, there was like 8 cautions. So I mean, chaos everywhere, backwards and forwards. It was insane.
Yep.
Pato O'Ward had this crazy save where he
Dude.
was, I mean, like we're talking 100
Yeah.
and, or we're talking 200 and like almost 220 miles an hour. Like, and he just like, they call him ninja hands, which I love. Because he like saved it. Like,
Is he, is he weaving? Is he weaving like jutsu signs like
yeah,
Naruto?
yeah. No, like, I mean, for real though, like it's this, that's what they call him. And I can see why, because he just, the saves that he was putting into that
Yeah.
performance of that car is insane. Um, they had 16 different leaders at different points, um and just yeah, a ton of crashes, a ton of accidents.
Hmm.
At any given point there's like 5 or 6 drivers that they're saying, oh, they could win, this is the pass for the lead or whatever.
Hmm.
And one thing that was really interesting this year was that because there was that 4 hour delay with the rain, they
Hmm.
were literally in uncharted territory because the cars had never run this late on this track with
Yeah.
this cold of temperatures.
Yep.
So like they were like, well, what are the tires going to do? Like, what's the fuel going to be? And like you talk about strategy, like Formula One talks about strategy with like tire changes and pit stops and undercutting
Yeah.
and everything. IndyCar has that,
There's
but
more strategy.
it also has the whole drafting thing, right? So it's like
Yes.
if you're out in front, right, you're in clean air, but that also means that you burn up more fuel.
Right.
Your tires are saved, but you burn up more fuel. So if you're behind somebody, your car, you can save fuel, but then it also scrubs your tires more because you're in dirty air.
Right.
So it's like there's like this give and take thing.
Yeah.
There's
The
all these
balance.
switching back and forth. Like there's a lot of cat and mouse going on,
Hmm.
and literally it's decided at like literally the last 4 races of an Indy 500 are insane unless somebody's like miles ahead, which is very rarely happening. Um, yeah, man, what a race. That
Yeah.
was so wild. Joseph Newgarden, also another historic win on that side because it was the first time in 22 years that a driver has won back-to-back Indy 500s.
Hmm.
And there's bonus money for people who do that. There's
Yeah.
like I think
Was
it's
it?
like the National Milks Association or
Yeah.
something.
Did they
Like
say was it 40K or 400K? It was a lot of money.
it was $475,000.
That's insane.
So he basically made
That's
like he
insane.
netted like 3 mil at this race, basically.
I mean, take taxes
Um,
off of that. I mean, you're probably
it's a lot of
that's
money.
yeah. You're
Yeah.
going home with probably 2 million.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely wild. There are like I think about six different drivers that I was hoping was going to win at different points. Several drivers that I was hope were going to retire, which they didn't, but at least they didn't win, so that's fine. Um,
Are we gonna say their names here, or for another
we
time?
we could, I
Yeah.
guess, whatever. I mean, I already said I'm not a religious person, so somebody who drives a car that says pray.com, I'm not exactly a very good big fan of. Um, but anyway, yeah, so very exciting, and it was it also I should say this is definitely shouldn't go without saying
Hmm.
the qualifying for this 500 was the fastest in history.
Oh yeah.
Like the average was 234.22 miles an hour
That's
average over
insane.
4 laps. I mean, that's
That's
nuts.
that's insane, man.
I mean, he was pulling 240 in like turn 4. I mean, that's nuts.
That's so
That's just
scary.
crazy.
Could you imagine what that must feel like? That I can't even comprehend.
I mean, like, think about like that's a 2 mile. Well, it's like a 2 mile track, right? Like, you think
Hmm.
about how big that track is. When you're going at that speed, I'm sure it feels like it's like this small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like your perspective shifts so
Yeah.
much when you're going that quickly.
Right.
Like we get out on the racetrack at when we were at Austin, and it felt
Oh, it's
huge.
huge. Yeah. Yeah.
But like I'm sure when you're driving on it and you're in a
Hmm.
car going really fast, it probably doesn't feel that big.
Yeah.
So
It probably has that same like dilation effect. Like anytime they go into hyperspace in Star Wars, right? Like
mhm,
see the stars and then everything kind of like lengthens a bit. It's probably
right.
similar to that.
Right. And you know, it's also, I mean, you can imagine what Monaco would feel like,
Hmm.
going really quick around those
Oh,
streets
and
because of how
oh my
small
God.
that is.
And all the more reason for F1 to go to smaller cars, right?
I know. I
Like that
know.
is the problem. Like Monaco, I think the problem with Monaco is that it is a track you cannot expand, right?
Right. Right.
Therefore, if you want more overtaking, if you want more, competitiveness to the event added into the event or sprinkled
Right.
into the event, make the car smaller. Done.
And
And
yeah.
because look at like F1 races in Monaco back in the 90s, in the 80s,
Mhm.
like it wasn't like this. It
No,
wasn't a processional.
no. And you know what? And here's the thing too. F1 keeps adding all these freaking street circuits.
Yeah.
What is Monaco not the ultimate street circuit? Like, has it not been on the streets, the calendar since
Yeah.
the literally the beginning of the entire
Yeah.
thing?
It's absurd.
Like, why would you add more street circuits if you're gonna make the cars still? I mean, I'm glad they're making them smaller, but to me, it's still not enough.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need to go
It's
back to like early 2000 car sizes.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just make them smaller.
Yeah.
Make them smaller.
Yeah.
If they're smaller, they weigh less. They're like there's less of an aero print. Like, think about how narrow, how small the air profile coming off
Hmm.
the car is going to be if it's narrower. Like, that's going to make it easier for passing, be able to dip in and out. Like,
Yeah.
these cars are so big and wide, and they just create such a big wind imprint. Like, what are you
Hmm.
doing?
And not just that too. Like compare that to the Indy 500 when we're watching, right? Like,
Yeah.
it was the lap where Linus Lundqvist,
Lundqvist.
yes,
Mhm.
where he went off, right? And
Mhm.
he was the first one into the turn, right? But then
Right.
everyone starts sucking up each other's air, right?
Yep.
And then they're going four wide. Like F1 would
No.
never. You saw a
No.
little bit of that at the Chinese Grand Prix,
Yeah.
a little bit of
A little
that,
bit. Yeah. A little bit.
and that's what that made it a little exciting because it's like, oh crap, there's like some cool stuff going on here, right? Um, got to go back to that kind of that smaller form factor.
Yeah.
Got to.
That or maybe Formula One needs to start treating Monaco like Indy treats the 500.
Hmm.
Like, have Monaco be like a
Like the
2 week
event,
spectacle. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Have multiple practice sessions. Make a Monaco spec cars that are narrower and like
maybe,
smaller and
maybe.
narrower.
Hmm.
Specific, because IndyCar has that for the 500.
Right,
They're
different
the
Indy
similar.
trim.
It's the same chassis, right? But they
Yeah.
have these tiny wings. The wheels and the wheel hubs and everything are like very specific. Like, they demonstrated if you spin an IndyCar 500 spec wheel,
Hmm.
the tolerances are so minute, so fine that the wheel just keeps spinning. Like, it just holds its inertia. And that's why, like, you'll see these drivers on the track, like, they'll let off the gas in a turn, but the
Hmm.
car is still staying up in its RPMs, and it's not dropping speed immediately. And
Hmm.
that's because the wheels have such a low resistance, rolling
Hmm.
resistance, that they
Yeah.
just go. like like that is not the same car that they drive on the like the
Right.
circuits.
Right.
So like I know it would be more money, but like you're doing cost saving. You might as well just make Monaco like the spectacle of a race. Like make it bigger than it is, you
Or, I
know?
mean, dude, if we're gonna say this, like, just make the Monaco spec car like the car. You
I
know,
mean
again,
that's ideal.
that's what we're trying to
That's
get to,
ideal.
right? Just
Yeah.
make it smaller, right?
Yeah, just make it smaller because honestly, like they can adapt those cars to. I mean, honestly, any room on a racetrack is going to be good room, and
Yeah.
we know historically they've had races with narrower cars on big circuits like Spa, and they were
Hmm.
great.
Yeah.
So we didn't need to make these cars did not need to be this big. They
Right.
didn't need to be this wide. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's not the 70s anymore. We're not just relying on mechanical grip all the time. Like, it's like we don't have these giant fat tires. Like everyone's not doing some crazy things. Like they can be smaller and they need
Yeah.
to be. So
Ain't got.
hopefully what
I was gonna say, ain't got those thick tires,
Oh yeah.
those
No,
thick
I'm staring at
boys.
I have the arrows on the other screen over here. And my God, those tires are like huge.
Yeah.
It's like the size of a giant coffee table. Um yeah. But anyway, the 500 won by Joseph Newgarden.
Hmm.
Poor Pato Award, man, he was so close.
Man,
I was like pounding on the bed, like I was like, come on, come on, come on.
dude,
Like
he
we
was
were,
gutted.
he
He was
was,
gutted.
man.
Yeah.
He was so close. He was doing
Yeah.
so good. But Newgarden he had a quicker car, and
Hmm.
Pato just could not come back. If they had maybe had one more lap, maybe he could have done something. But
Mm.
he took his shot, and he took his shot at the right time. He just, Newgarden was faster.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. It was really fun to watch. Both the Monaco GP and the Indy 500 in one day. It's I'll tell you, when you can watch things live, it's a game changer, right? And
Yeah.
it also helped that there was the storm delay, so that kind of helped with like the scheduling of my day today personally. But
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. Yeah, when
it
we
was
saw there
really
was a rain delay, we just switched over to the Monaco
yeah,
race.
yeah.
So,
I mean, it's good. Like the Indy 500 is really fun to watch, and like honestly, this makes you want to actually go in person and actually like
oh
feel
yeah,
feel that sound and feel that thunder through my chest from
yeah,
the brickyard as they call it.
yeah. No, it's 100%. That is bucket list race
Yeah,
to go to.
yeah.
Even if I just get to the race, I mean, I as much as I'd love to be able to just take a month off, and just like watch
Yeah.
all the sessions, be there for all of it,
Hmm.
get the VIP treatment or whatever.
Hmm.
But yeah, if I could just show up for that race, I mean, yeah, that would be pretty spectacular to
Yeah,
witness. So.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely a bucket list. I mean, it also feels more accessible too because it's Indiana. It's not
Oh yeah, yeah.
the French Riviera,
That's yeah,
Like,
dude, exactly right. Like,
yeah.
what do you think the average Airbnb in Monaco is? Wrong,
Oh
wrong
God.
question. If you're asking what an Airbnb in Monaco is, you
Yeah,
shouldn't be thinking about coming to Monaco,
they
probably.
were saying something like an apartment in Monaco, like that one of the drivers owned was like 17 million or something
What
like
what
that.
is what is that? Come
I
on.
know. It's like, ugh.
What is the
Yeah.
cheapest apartment in Monaco?
You just Googling
Yeah,
it.
one bedroom apartments for sale in Monte Carlo. Let's see. Okay, 30 square meters for 800 euros. So
30
what's
square meters.
so 30 square meters? Just say assume 1 meter is about 3 feet. So
Okay. That's
that's square meters, right? So 30
mhm,
times 30 times
right.
however many.
Yeah, but what kind of apartment are we talking here? Are we talking like this has like a bucket for a toilet and your
Mhm.
landlord has like your landlord is like has like a gambling problem? Like, what's the like what
Yeah,
is the conditions here for that money?
yeah. It's not big. That's 300. That's like a little over 300 square feet, right?
Yeah. Oof.
Yikes.
Yeah.
800
Well,
euros. Well, anyways,
what's a one bedroom apartment
yeah.
in Indianapolis?
Yeah.
Probably way more reasonable.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah. But well anyway, yeah, Dries. So after witnessing your first, well, actually watching the Indy
Hmm.
500, like for the most part, and I mean, what are your thoughts in comparison of the two events? Like, if like let's say you were given like a pit pass access, whatever, full access to either event, which one would you lean towards going to first?
You mean between Monaco and Indy?
Yes.
Oh, like, ooh. I was going to knee jerk react and say obviously Monaco, just because there's a lot more there, right? Like I'm leaving the country. It's a whole experience, right? Like it's
Mm,
Monte Carlo and all expenses paid. Like that's pretty crazy.
yeah.
Versus Indy 500, I feel like I can do that with my own salary right now. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like I think from that perspective, I think I'd pick like Monaco. Although Indy 500 would be just as fun, you know. Maybe
Yeah.
if I could
Yeah.
take the money that it would cost me to do Monaco, right, and use it for Indy 500, I
You
could
just
probably
take the
bring,
month off. Yeah.
I mean, that, and I could also probably bring like so many friends and family, you
Yeah.
know?
I think that's the thing. I think that like in that scenario, the as far as monetary wise, like obviously you're getting there's more money involved with Monaco. Like it would be the better
For
deal
sure.
financially,
Yeah.
but I still think bang for your buck, I think 500's giving you more as far as entertainment value. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
like you also have to think like at the Principality, food's going to be super expensive.
Hmm.
Um,
Caviar.
like would you like your caviar burger? Speaking of which, can we talk about was there literally a steak and shake at the first corner of
Oh
that
my
Monaco?
God.
What
Oh
is
my
that?
God. All right. So for
Is
those
that
that
is
are
that's not the same steak and shake
like,
that we went to at
no,
3 a.m.
no,
after
no,
gigs?
that's Steak and Shake. Steak and Shake got bought out like this was maybe like 10 years ago, and it's being managed by some company called Bigelow or Bigelow. I'm not sure how you say it. But yeah, they've like made it a bit of a more upscale type of dining experience, or at least that's how they portray it as. It's the same exact Steak and Shake. Like I go in there, I still get my double steak or my no, I get the Frisco melt. Either the Frisco melt
Yes.
or I used to get the Wisconsin buttery, but I think they like got rid of that. Um but yeah, the first time I noticed it, I was out in LA one time and I saw Steak and Shake by Bigelow, and I was like, that is like a really clean looking Steak and Shake. I would not trust a burger that comes out of that place. That was kind of my
Hmm.
stance on it. But yeah, that's what
I think
they are now.
the 500 has that tradition where the drivers drink milk at the end of the like if they win, right? Like they like chug the thing of milk, right?
Hmm.
The Monaco GP needs to have the winner like just smash a Frisco melt at the on the podium, just like like because I had no idea that was like I was like steak and shake. What the hell? And now, God, now I want a Frisco melt so bad, but
Dude,
there's no steak and shake out here, so I
yep.
don't even know.
You know what?
I don't know where I could find it.
There's a Steak and Shake 10 minutes away from me. I can
Lucky you.
eat one for you.
Yeah, send it in the mail. Freeze dry it. I don't know.
I'm
No,
sure it freeze dry real nice.
I'm just gonna have to make my own. I know it's basically just like it's just like an onion smash burger, but with Frisco sauce and like
Mm.
on like a what is it, sourdough? What do they use?
Hmm.
I'll have to figure out how to make it because I'm in desperate need of a Frisco melt. That is key for me at this moment in
Mm.
time. Um, yeah. So I don't really know too much else. So what else
Yeah.
is there going on in the race space that we should we haven't covered?
I mean, I think honestly that was really it. Just between Monaco and Indy, like those only two that I watched. I know the NASCAR Charlotte race happened today, or I think it happened.
Yeah,
I
it was the
don't
Coke
know.
600 that um Kyle Larson was supposed to
Yeah,
race in, but
yeah,
then there was that 4 hour delay and he couldn't do it.
hmm, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that was like there was like this whole thing with
yeah.
him, and he didn't end up actually going because of because you
That
know what,
delay.
Mother Nature do what she gonna do.
Yeah,
She gonna be what she gonna be.
yeah.
Oh, here's some stuff I can tell you. Uh, so I traded in some games and I picked up an IndyCar Nintendo 64 game, which I haven't played yet, but I'm really excited about it. But I also picked up this thing called Corvette Racing. It was a
Hmm.
PlayStation 2 game that came out for the 50th anniversary of the Corvette. And when I booted it up, I was expecting to be like, hell yeah, Corvettes. you know, like real like Americana rock and whatever.
Hmm.
But no, they gave me like this really nice electronic lounge jazz, like Euro
Mm,
techno intro.
love it.
And it's got like all those sweet like menu selection sounds. And then I get into the race and it's like it's got elements of like cruising the world. There's like jets flying over fast and low, and like
Yeah.
I was on a military base. There's like a bunch of tanks like around it, and like just the environment was all crazy and wacky. And I'm like, this is pretty good. This is pretty
Hmm.
fun. And that also it also got me into replaying Need for Speed Underground 2, which, man, it holds up. It holds up so unbelievably well. Like I think I'm more excited to play it now than I ever was when I was a kid. And I think it's just because I know so much more about it,
Yeah.
and like I understand so much more of what I'm witnessing or playing.
Hmm.
Um yeah, it was absolutely dope. I'm I'm reliving my childhood like a bit more, and kind of living vicariously through Lauren a bit here. So,
Yeah. I mean,
um,
it's nice when we're adults and we have the money, to actually go
yeah,
ahead and do the things we wanted to do when we were kids.
yeah,
But it's what money, energy, and time, or no, money, energy, and yeah, money, energy, and time, right? That's the pyramid, the triangle you always have to balance, and
yeah,
yeah, one of them always goes away.
yeah. But the thing is, like, the thing I like about us, our generation specifically, is that like we're not letting adulthood take away what we were as kids. Like we are still young at heart, and we will forever be young at heart. You know what I mean? It's like we're just sticking to what we want, and we're sticking to what we like, and we're here for it forever. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. You can check us out anywhere that you get your podcasts. If you want to hit us up on Instagram, or TikTok, or YouTube, or X, it's all at F1 or F off. You can also email us at F1 or F off podcast at gmail.com. Please give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'll also accept the 4.5. If you want to give it a 3, better justify it. I want to know. I want to have good reasons for that.
Absolutely.
But please, like, comment, like, subscribe, smash that subscribe button, smash it. Psh, psh, psh. And yeah, be sure to share it to your friends. Be sure to share it to your family and your enemies. And Lance Stroll, once again, let him know.
We already
But
said your enemies, Gabe.
yeah, but I mean, he's a separate category. I mean, it's like there's friends, family and friends, acquaintances, work people, enemies, Lance Stroll. So that's the hierarchy of it. Just being honest.
Who lucked out because Fernando helped him out in the race. But that's
Yeah,
that's neither
yeah,
here nor there.
yeah. All right. Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
peace.